Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I am your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Susie Moon. Susie Moon is the founder of Susie Moon Consulting. With 25 years of corporate experience and 4 years as a business owner, Susie is all about helping small business owners get in front of their ideal clients through strategic networking, powerful partnerships, and targeted speaking engagements. She's helped clients build trust and grow their impact. Known for her ability to find the perfect opportunities and bring a dash of humor to everything she does, Susie creates what her clients call the Susie Moon effect. You can find Susie on LinkedIn by searching Susie Moon or by going to her website, susiemoon.net, or by emailing her at susie@susiemoon.net. Hello, Susie. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Thanks, Olivia. It's great to be here.
I am very excited to dive into the world of networking and building trust with clients, and especially the speaking side, which you and I have talked a lot about previously. But I want to start off the show. Can you tell me what success means and looks like to Susie Moon?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I love it. Success, I believe, is putting your mind to something and achieving it. It could be as little as I want to put on shoes today. I need to wear pants today. Okay, how do I get there? So planning a little bit ahead and, setting yourself up with goals and just doing the thing. That's so important. So, yeah.
And Susie, you've built a reputation of helping small business owners find the perfect opportunities to connect with ideal clients, whether it's through networking, partnerships, and speaking engagements, like I mentioned in that intro I did for you. What inspired you to focus on that specific area? And why do you think it's vital for small businesses to be intentional about showing up in these spaces?
Yeah. One of the jobs I had when I worked in corporate was I planned continuing education seminars for the company I was working for, and I would recruit the speakers for those events. So I was finding the people that were very knowledgeable. I was putting the agenda together, all the topics, coordinating all of the things to make the event successful. And I love that job. I absolutely loved it. And I was laid off at one point in time, 2009, when everything kind of crashed in the market. And I missed that part of it. So another thing that I did in corporate was helping sales teams find success in looking for their ideal clients, putting butts in seats. So I've always had this event themed background in my life, and I've just continued to work on that in my business, and I still love it to this day. So helping anything that has to do with speaking, events, it's my jam. So most of my clients actually are speakers.
For you, as you realized that space was your jam and you had worked in it, as you said, in different aspects of your career, and it looked a little different at different times, how did you go, okay, this is my jam and this is what I could be doing as a business?
Oh, as a small business owner, when you first start your business, it's not always what you think you're going to be doing 5 years down the road. I started my business thinking I was going to be simply a virtual assistant, someone that just does all the things behind the scenes. And what I was really focusing on was the technical aspects of being a VA. I love making things happen, working in CRM systems, and it just wasn't fulfilling to me. I realized that I'm such a people person. I love building relationships. I love networking. Why am I not focusing on this? Because it's what I was doing in corporate. Why didn't I just continue that on? So I've really, like, it wasn't until this year that I really started to dive directly into that instead of doing all the different things, helping everybody with everything. So now I'm truly focused on doing what I love best, is helping people get visible and build their presence out in the world.
And I love how you brought up too that it's sometimes about, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, pivoting along the way. And I mean, you and I have talked about it. My story and what I do consulting is not what I started, or to be honest, what I ever thought I would be doing as a consultant, but it was just such a natural fit. And it was the thing people were asking me for that I was like, oh, wait, why aren't I doing this? Like, hit on the head moment of like, come on now, like so clear, but not clear to me.
Yeah.
For you, as you just said, you kind of had that experience where you're like, wait, why aren't I doing this? It's not igniting me in the same way. So now that you've leaned into that aspect and you're growing your client list and focusing on really what ignites you, how have you found that then in turn helps ignite you as a business owner as well as help to ignite your clients?
Oh boy. When I'm in my zone of genius and when I'm helping people connect, and first of all, it ignites me, it lights me up. um, and that's addictive, or that's it translates to my clients. I'm believing in them. I want them to show off their talents. I just believe that every person in this world has a talent that needs to be shared with the world. And if we were all in our zone of genius doing the best thing that we know how, what a cool place it would be. So how do I help build that mission and share that with other people? Passion is not what do I want to say? Not addictive, but it's it's
Even
like,
even in the stress moments when you
oh
follow it, it's not stressful.
yeah, exactly. It's it just, I don't know what the word is I'm trying to say. It's just such a it's a spreadable thing, it's contagious. That's what I'm trying to say.
It really is, and it's something where we all we become more comfortable. I have found personally as well, where when you sit in that space where you're the expert, it's your passion, you could speak all day on it, and it's the thing where you could really lean in and help as many people as possible. Everything else is white noise.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And just being in that moment and feeling like it's so easy for you, yet you don't even realize it's not easy for other people. I think that's the key.
Mhm.
Like really tuning into and listening to what you're best at. And sometimes it takes other people to tell you that. Well, I don't know how to do that. Oh, you don't? Oh, that's just natural for me. So the things that are natural for you might be what you would go into business for, you know?
Susie, in the world of networking and partnerships and speaking engagements, which can all in their own right seem very overwhelming, especially for small business owners where they've limited time, potentially limited resources. From your experience, what is the biggest mistake small businesses make in these spaces, and how can they shift their approach to create more meaningful and lasting connections?
Oh, good question. I really feel like people are not networking to build the relationships. I think they assume that by attending an event, I am going to get 3 leads from it. But really, what you're doing is having people remember you when you're not there. So you're leaving an impression, you're building relationships and trust, and you need to give first in order for people to trust you. So I think it's important to go into an event knowing that you have something to offer, not that you're selling anything, but leaving people with a good impression of you and that you want to help others. And knowing exactly what you do, being referable, knowing, you having your elevator pitch down to a science where it's easy for a 5-year-old to understand what you do. I think we're making it too hard, I think.
Mhm. And that goes into my next question, which I could already tell based on other conversations you and I have, where we're both going to ignite our flames and end up going down a rabbit hole. But I'm excited for this rabbit hole because I think it really is something that needs to be talked about more. And that is on the aspect of becoming a speaker or being a podcast host. So many people right now are saying and raising their hands of, I can be a speaker, I can be a podcast host. And there's a lot of excitement around this, but there's also a lot of misconceptions about what it really takes to succeed in those types of spaces. You obviously work with a lot of individuals in the speaking space, so we'll focus there. But in your experiencing working with speakers, what are the most or the biggest misconceptions you've encountered, whether it be with long-term speakers or people that are just going, speaking is a buzzword right now. I can do it. Let's do it.
Oh, everybody wants to be a speaker right now. And it's a long game. I have to say, it's a long game. Some people think, well, I'm a really good business owner and I know, let's say I know SEO, so I should be able to talk about SEO. Well, first of all, you may not be a very good speaker. Like, how good are you at presenting in front of others? Or you assume right away that you're going to get paid, $1,000 to speak at an event. Well, it doesn't work like that. You have to practice. There's just so many steps that are involved in getting you to those paid stages. So I think people assume that it'll happen overnight, that, oh, I just need to meet the right people. I think the industry is changing a little bit. I think money's a little tighter for associations. They might not be able to pay as much. So a lot of free speaking opportunities are there. I also think you should look at those free stages where your ideal clients are, and you could sell stuff once you're there,
Mhm.
sell whatever you're offering. So I think there's just so many things involved with it that you have to be careful about assuming you're going to be the best speaker. A lot of times, like, people ask me to do comedy skits, and I know I'm not a very good speaker. It takes way too much prep time, memorization, going through jokes, and I don't have the time for that. So I'm okay with that. I would rather teach people how to network or something where I don't have to be on point. There's a lot of pressure being funny on stage. So just setting yourself up for success, I think, is important. And knowing what is achievable and what is not it's a good standard to have when you're going into it.
And going back to your point as well earlier, is it is such a hot take right now. And people are thinking, like you said, I could just start speaking tomorrow and I could start bringing in all this money. But there's a lot of people in this space that don't have the skill set to get on the stage and engage with people. There's a lot of individuals who aren't understanding it takes time and hours of research to find the right stages to speak on. And then you have to prep. Like, I remember doing my TED Talk, and up until that point, I done a lot of free speaking. It was never, when I started my business, I ended up putting it in. But before that, for years, I done free speaking to colleges or local community centers, like, where they would just say, "Hey, Olivia, we need this. Would you be willing to spend an hour?" And I'd be like, "Of course." So when I got approached to do my TED Talk, and I was like, wait, I never thought I'd be on a TED stage. And there was that misconception. A lot of people, the typical route is for you to apply, to do all these things. And I got approached to be on my TED stage. So I always am very transparent about that. My experience getting there is not like most people's. But what I did once I got the TED Talk and confirmed it is I practiced every day. I lined out what that timeline would be because it was about 6 or 7 weeks from the time they told me, hey, you're going to be on the TED stage. So when that actual day was about 6 or 7 weeks. And so I lined up, okay, writing it down, editing time, practicing on with paper, without, and every day I filled out that time. Every day. And I remember they did a event for the speakers and people in the community the night before the TED Talk. And so they were like two different events. And I'm there and I'm with a bunch of other speakers. And one of them is talking to me and he's like, Olivia, I want your advice. Like, I have this layout for tomorrow's talk. And I'm like, I look at him like, deer in headlights. Are you kidding me right now? You haven't practiced a million times of what you're going to say? And people listen to my TED Talk, and it's a 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And they're like, it was short, but it was so impactful. And your body language and this and that. And I was like, yeah, because I practiced the shit out of that. I knew exactly when I said a certain word, how I wanted to be standing. And the message, not only I wanted to be saying out of my mouth, but what I wanted my body language to be saying in that real time. And I think those are the aspects that when everyone, and excuse me, everyone and their mother is saying right now, I'm a speaker, what that really means as well. So for you, when someone comes to you, a new client, and they go, you know what, I'm decided I want to be a speaker, and you start going down and they haven't had that experience, how do you try navigating, especially with people who have, limited resources, limited funding as small business owners? Is this really the right path for you to be on?
I think the best thing to do with those newer speakers is to get them on as many podcasts as possible to get the reps in. So you're not going to want a six pack of abs and not do any sit ups to get there. You have to get the reps in. So just talking and practicing what you're going to say over and over, I think is truly important. And then just getting in front of some free stages, whatever networking group you can present at, just to get the storytelling experience in. And then work your way up. Some of them come to us and they don't even have a speaker one sheet. And not that you absolutely need one to get a stage, but it helps. So seeing what other people are doing out there, I think it's maybe even talking with other speakers is helpful to find out what's working, what's not working. So just giving them some ideas on what they can do to make it closer to get to a successful outcome as they can.
And as I mentioned earlier, you've also mentioned this previously, is there's so much more that goes into booking a speaking job than most people think. So can you shed some light on what that really looks like and what that process to going from like, okay, I'm going to speak on a stage to the end result of actually speaking on a stage? What goes into that?
Well, it's number one, finding the opportunities and knowing where to look. We use probably 10 to 15 different sources to find the speaking engagements and find the call for speakers, or we're looking organically in their geographic area and finding, who could they get in front of. And it really depends on their audience. But yeah, finding them first and then applying. Some of the clients we apply for them. Some of them do it all on their own. Just, giving them, and a lot of them will ask questions like, what do you think I should put on this application? What do you think I should ask for here? And so just walking them through all of the different variables of it, I think is important. And yeah, it's really It's a stage. It's a literal stage. You go from nothing to gradually working your way up, and then finding a group of people that will you can practice on, I think is important as well. And you may have 5 different applications that you look at. Well, you're not going to get everyone. Chances are there's a big pool of people. So making your message stand out in the crowd, I think, is important. A lot of times people are using AI to craft the application or the messages that they're or the applications they're filling out, which I think is great. But if you can just make sure you're personalizing it for each individual event and making it sound like you, and what problem are you helping solve when you're speaking, or the result of you speaking, what's going to happen at the end of that? What are they going to walk away with? So giving them something tangible than just a motivational feel good type of event.
It's also, there's so much, as you said, that you have to take into consideration. The time for applications, the fact that you aren't the only one filling out this form, the fact that, as you said, which I love this tip as well, is you can leverage AI to help you fill out the form appropriately. But you need to add those personal touches, because a lot of times, like, I recently went through this because I sit on the International Association for Supply Chain Management, one of their committees, the Young Professional Committee, and I'm their chair on that committee. And we just went into, we were recently looking at the next board members that would sit on the board. And we had a very high application, right? We had like 50 something people apply for, and we had 3 spots to fill. And so, right? So a lot of people. And I was reading these and I was like, fully AI. You didn't even read the question. I was like, you answered almost the exact wording without telling me anything, the exact thing across the board. And the people who work for ASEM International, I've worked with them for a handful of years in different capacities now. I've sat on their international board as a committee member for this committee for going on 3 years. I'm in the third year term, but before that, I helped them pivot one of their offerings. So I sat on that committee. And so I've gotten to know the people really well. And they're like, Olivia, you're no BS. Like, you're going to sit here and go 000 across the board. When other people might be a little bit more. And I'm like, if you're wasting my time by not even taking into consideration that someone is sitting here and reading 50 of these and want to pick the best person to give the best value, like, because it's service driven, right? You're giving back to the community. It's speaking, you're giving back to the people who are paying to attend that event. And if you can't take it seriously enough to put in your personalized voice into it or make it sound your own or just leverage ChatGPT, that also is saying something about you and what is the reputation that you want to put out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I also encourage speakers to have a strategy before and after they speak. How are they engaging with the audience that they might be in front of? And, as soon as you're done speaking, don't run off the stage and hide in the hallway. If you're in person, shake as many hands as possible, get feedback from people right away. I think it's really important that you're not just there to talk, on your thing. You're a presence. Make sure that people are aligning with you and want to buy your book after because you shook their hand and looked them in the eye and said, "Hello, it's nice to meet you." So there's a lot of things that go around the whole speaking business. And I think it's just crucial that you have to pay attention to all of that.
And to go into that, and I just want to put an emphasis on, because I remember when I was kind of getting into the speaking side of things after my TED Talk, because I was like, oh, well, now I've landed this stage. And leveraging that, whether you're an entrepreneur, when you're just entering something for a passion and it's new to you, I'll take snowboarding or skiing or fishing, whatever it might be, and including speaking. If you haven't done it before, you can be like a deer in headlights. And I'm very much a person of, I might not know where to turn, but I need to ask the questions and I need clarity. And one of the things, again, right now, a lot of people want to be speakers. And how do you pick from the people willing to put in the work versus not, versus who will really add value versus not? But one thing I asked people, which I couldn't get answered right away, was what realistically, how much time goes into from a beginning to an end? Are you spending applying to places, so you can put that time aside? What does the time like?
That's a great question. And I think it does depend on who you are and how much you do want to spend going after it. Some people hire agents to take care of all of the arrangements for them, which is cool. More power to you. A lot of our clients are doing the applying on their own. I would say in the ones that I'm doing for other people, probably 30 minutes per application. It's almost like you're applying for jobs. Everyone is different. They all ask for similar types of information, but you have to make it personalized and unique. So I would, even the searching of finding the speaking opportunities is a big chunk of time because you could go down a rabbit hole. You see one association and you want to find out every event that they have going on because it's really your target audience. Maybe just reaching out to the one of the coordinators there or a board member there might be a good step in the right direction. And how are you going to track that? Are you going to follow up on a consistent basis with that person to get in front of who you want to be in front of? So it could be just a time suck depending on where you go and what you're working on. So, working with people like us, we can help you sort through that and get more focused. But people do it all different levels. So it's depending on what you're looking for.
And it's also understanding how much time you have, right? I would come to you because I know my time needs to be spent somewhere else, and you're going to be probably way more effective and efficient at the process than I would be.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to stay in your zone of genius too. So if filling out applications, just drains your energy, don't do it. Have somebody else do it. So just knowing that is important.
And Susie, speaking engagements, as we're so on that topic, are often seen as a very powerful way to establish authority and connect with the audience, which you have also mentioned previously. But not all opportunities are created equally, as we've touched upon. How do you guide small business owners to really identify and prioritize the right speaking engagements that truly align with their mission and will allow them to maximize their impact, whether it's a free engagement, like you mentioned, because sometimes the free aspect will pay you tenfold versus the paid aspects.
Yeah. I think that's a magic thing. If you can figure out that model, oh goodness, that would sell like hotcakes. Well, knowing your schedule, when you're available, maybe mapping it out, kind of reverse engineering your calendar and figuring out, okay, I'm going to go with one speaking engagement per month. And what does that look like? And then really diving into which audience can I make the most impact on? And where is the revenue generating from this? What's the ROI on that event? How can can I sell books at the event? Can I sell coaching programs at the end? It varies. And then maybe backfilling with additional podcast interviews that don't take up as much of your time and energy to prepare. I think is a good way to do it. So kind of getting those bigger events solidified. Maybe even if you wanted to do quarterly keynotes and then fill in with monthly events and then do, podcasts to fill in. So it's almost like filling that big jar with big rocks and then putting the little rocks in and, putting the sand on the top and the water, kind of like that. That's what I envision.
And it's also, like you said, identifying that timetable and really what that looks like. And one thing that you mentioned that I think a lot of us don't think about is what is that timetable really looking like and how are we leveraging that speaking engagement? Like you said, are you selling books there? Is the return on investment doing it for free, but they're all your ideal clients? So you might walk into a room with 50 people and turn 25% of them into clients. Well, to me, that could be more beneficial long term than going in and getting paid $2,000 for a speaking engagement. For you, how do you help someone identify what their powerful message can be and really making sure that when they walk into a room, they're sharing that, whether it is through networking or speaking, whatever it might be, but making sure that they have that voice and they have that power.
Mm. I would actually refer to a speaker coach because I don't consider myself a good speaker. I don't consider myself teaching others how to speak. So I like to refer people because they're better at it. But I think it's important to tell a story, be relatable, talk in terms that people are going to understand. I even get overwhelmed when people use technical terms, just dumb it down for me a little bit. Make it easy for me and make it fun. I love humor. So I would want a speaker that's going to bring a little more playfulness, to the table. Well, if you're talking of something very not playful, like if I'm going to talk about accounting principles, it's going to be more of a challenge to make that fun and engaging. But I'm sure there's a way, So I think those are the tips that I would recommend. Just be yourself, be authentic, make it entertaining if you can, and make it memorable. I think those are the things.
And what would be your advice to a client on making, whether it is in networking or it is doing speaking, to really keep in mind the lasting impression as well as being able to leverage it to open other doors as well?
I think the storytelling thing is a big one for me because I like to tell a funny story or an anecdote. But leaving them like tug on those heartstrings. Somehow, what is the feeling that you want them to feel at the end of your talk? Do you want them to feel inspired? Do you want them to feel motivated to go get something done? Do you want them to feel stressed out? No, nobody wants to feel stressed out after a talk, So make sure that you're leaving them with something that it's the wanted outcome, the perceived outcome that you want them to remember you for that feeling.
Susie, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
They can reach me on social. LinkedIn is probably my favorite, but also on my website, susiemoon.net.
Thank you, Susie, for all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me, Olivia. I appreciate it.
Of course. And we got into a lot of things, and I have quite a few key takeaways from today's conversation, which include network to build relationships. Susie mentioned this in the beginning. It shouldn't be a give and take, it should be building it for the long term to build relationships, as well as you need to be willing to give first. When you're willing to give first, people then turn to you in so many different capacities and they will give it back to you and might give it back to you tenfold. As well as speaking engagements is about the long term and that long term game. As Susie mentioned, it isn't an instant turnaround. There's hard work that goes into it. It takes time. The return can be short term and long term. But speaking engagements and being a speaker, as Susie has demonstrated throughout this conversation, is really about the long term. as well as leverage podcasts to get the reps in for speaking and understand your story, understand who your community is, people who will resonate with it. It might be also telling different parts of your stories to different communities. And as Susie mentioned, a different part of today's recording as well is it is also about being able to fill that bucket and put those rocks in other places instead of just a typical get on a stage capacity, as well as make your message stand out in the crowd, which I think is so important. We all have our own stories, we all have our own impact, we all have the things that ignite us, and use that, leverage it. Your uniqueness is a superpower, as well as have a strategy before and after the stage. I really think it's important how Susie mentioned this, because the end goal and the end result should not just be about the stage you're getting on. It should be about what are you doing leading up to that? How can you leverage the beforehand to potentially make income? How can you leverage the back end to potentially make income? And what does that really look like to you? And really identify those things, as well as thinking about applying for speaking engagements as applying for jobs. Take it, you are really, and I really enjoyed how Susie mentioned this, because it is really a job. You are applying to make an impact, leave an impression on someone, but you're also making income from it in some form of the way. So you are applying for a job. And that needs to be taken with seriousness as any other job that you would be applying for. It takes time. Just like applying for jobs, sometimes you have to pivot on what you would write and the pitch and how you would hold conversations. All of that is the same for speaking. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Susie Moon. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.